Welcome to the Microchip Is podcast. Join your host, Mike Maynard, as he learns about the technologies, products, and people that make microchip technology what it is today.
Welcome to the Microchip Is podcast. Today, we're learning why Microchip is development systems. I'm joined by Christine Freseman, who's the marketing manager for development systems at Microchip. Welcome to the podcast, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So can we start off by just learning a little bit about your role? So what is your role at Microchip?
So I am the marketing manager for Microchip's development systems team, and I run a small team of marketers who interface between the different business units that have silicon and between our own engineering team. So we have quite a large engineering team, and I'm responsible for marketing and getting the word out on MPLAB X IDE on our compilers, which is the MPLAB XC compilers, and also our debuggers. We also sell a lot of evaluation boards, but that's really taken care of by the different business units that sell the silicon, since they're the experts in those things.
So I'm interested, you don't actually make physical products. What you're providing is effectively the development software that engineers use to actually utilize Microchip's silicon. Is that correct?
Primarily, we do have a hardware team, and they do the debuggers. So that would be at the high end, the MPLAB ICE4, and at the low end, the MPLAB Snap. So we've got several debuggers and programmers in between. We have developed the PM3, which is our production programmer, and we're looking to update that as well. So
it's pretty much all the tools, both software and hardware, you'd need to actually build a system using a Microchip MCU.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. So, I mean, the first question I have to ask is, obviously there's a lot of third-party companies out there offering development systems. So what is the benefit for your customers in Microchip also offering a solution?
Well, our solution is really tailored to our silicon products. We work directly with the business units, as I've stated before. And so we're able to take advantage to what is there in the silicon for a developer to use, as far as our, different traces that are available and things like that. And we can put support out faster than you could with a third-party tool. And we do benchmark all of our tools against third parties, and we make sure that our tools or performance is as good or better than the third parties using our silicon.
So effectively, it's that focus on Microchip means that you can
Yes.
be, more responsive, more adaptive, and higher performance.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's really interesting. I guess the other side of that is, as you're really focused on Microchip, does that mean that if a customer chooses to use the Microchip toolchain, MPLAB, or any of your other tools, are they then locked into a Microchip ecosystem, or do you work with some of the more commonly used development platforms?
So they're not locked in. We do have support for our silicon in like IAR and in the Seger IDE. So IAR Workbench, the Seger IDE, and others. Some of the open source IDEs you can also use, like Eclipse, for instance, which is very popular, or even VS Code. So the Microsoft version, Visual Studio.
So people can sit in the IDE they prefer and then just use the development tools to develop the code. So that gives them an awful lot of flexibility, presumably.
Yes, it does.
So, one of the things I guess must be really hard is when you're building development systems, quality, reliability has got to be a key concern, particularly with a lot of your customers in, high reliability markets. So how do you ensure that quality? Is there a testing process or anything else you're doing to ensure the quality of the code that's generated?
Yeah, so all of our software and hardware actually we have a rather large testing team that's not only in the United States, but also in India, around the world. And we use CI/CD systems, which is continuous improvement, continuous development. So as far as our test team goes, we're so embedded in the CI/CD system that we have actually created a wizard for that. So if you're a developer and you want to get involved in CI/CD systems yourself, there's a wizard inside of MPLAB X that you can use to set up all of your images for that, working with Docker and Jenkins, and get your server set up to use that type of a system.
So that's great. So you're actually offering, really quite advanced, comprehensive capabilities. I mean, is there an area where you feel Microchip's dev tools offer particular strengths over, third-party competitors?
I would say probably in our flexibility. We listen to our clients, and we work very closely with our field reps, and we try to make sure that our tools have exactly, what our clients are needing at that time. We're always looking for new things to put in the tools. Right now we're looking at AI and how AI can possibly can help out a developer and integrate that into the tools itself. It's still very early in the process with that. We do these things internally as well. So the people that work in Microchip are also using the tools that we create. And first we kind of see how these things will work out internally, and then we push those out into the field and see how we can make things better for our clients.
And it's interesting you mention AI, because clearly one of the issues is with AI is that some of the code you get from generative AI is not going to be perfect. And
Right.
the requirements on the code your customers have to develop are often, really stringent. So, I mean, do you see AI as being, this kind of assistant people talk about? Do you see bits of code being 100% AI generated? How do you see AI developing for embedded software?
First of all, I think I see AI being used to check software code that's been developed already. We've had some of our really good developers. I mean, we have a lot of good software engineers, but some of the guys put in some of their code and try to test the AI to see if it can pick up problems they put in the code intentionally. And sometimes it picks that up, plus other things that they didn't see. Also, I've heard of things of putting in, there's all these comments you have to put in your code to say what it's doing, that AI can automatically put comments in your code. So I think that would be really helpful. Anything that's time saving, I don't know that I see AI particularly writing the code for people right now. I mean, it can, but we have a lot of code examples out there already, and we have this tool called the MPLAB Code Configurator that's very popular, and that's where I see people going there. The kind of the journey through development tools is, the way we see it is, they go to MPLAB Discover, which is a place where you can get everything. You can get videos, training videos. You can see what dev boards work with what silicon. You can see what example projects are there. And you kind of get started there, and then you move into the MPLAB Code Configurator product, and that will help you to get started on your project. And then you move everything into MPLAB X and really do the nitty gritty of your development. So I think AI can be a part of each one of those steps. Like, it could look at it and say, oh, I see you're using this board and this goes with these example projects, or you come in with an application. I want to do a thermal sensor or something, and it can tell you, oh, here's a great piece of silicon for it. You kind of step you through what silicon they could use, what dev board goes with it, what example projects are good to go with it. So I see it working in that way as well. It's not just with the code development, but also to help whittle down what silicon would be best to use for your application.
I mean, that to me is really interesting. You're not just throwing everything at generative AI and hoping for an answer. It feels like you've really thought through that journey for a developer, and you're walking them through the steps they need to take in the order they need to take them to make that development process easier and presumably quicker. Is that really the goal?
Yes, it is. The more that we can make things easy for the client, that's the direction we're trying to take. And it even goes into looking at the IDE and seeing where people get hung up, and trying to step people through processes without having them look at documentation. It's almost like, I mean, I hate to say this because they also run the documentation team, but if you have to pull up the document, we've sort of failed. I want people to get the information they need in the IDE when they need it. I mean, my goal, years, I don't know how many years from now that would be, but what we want to work towards is again, like I said, giving people the information they need from inside the IDE. So if they're working on a project and they're not sure what silicon is best, they can get it from right there. We've kind of started down that path where right now inside of MPLAB X, you can log in to MPLAB X and you can manage your software licenses from inside of there. You can go to Microchip Direct and buy things from inside of MPLAB X. You can get to all of our website. You can pull up documentation. We're trying to make the link between what our information has to MPLAB X, stronger all the time, and trying to step people through certain processes. So that's kind of been a big effort on our side. And MPLAB Discover, which is the tool that I talked about a little bit ago, that is also inside MPLAB X. So it's right in the very top bar. You get to discover, you can get to, you can open up inside of MPLAB X, and you can open up MCC inside of MPLAB X as well. If you just stay in that environment, you've got everything you need right there. You never have to leave.
Yeah. And I'm guessing part of that is because a lot of your customers are not the Microchip customers, necessarily buying the silicon and designing the hardware. They're specialist software engineers. So they're kind of a bit of a different audience than a lot of the people that Microchip talks to on a daily basis.
I've looked at a lot of the embedded world. They always do these surveys and stuff, and they say that design teams are heading more and more software engineering heavy. I think the last one I looked at said it was 60%, 40% hardware, 60% software. So yeah, I think we're really trying to tailor things kind of towards the software engineers. Yeah, and just making it easier for them.
That's fascinating. I mean, we seem to have covered quite a bit about the future. You've talked a bit about AI in particular, but also you mentioned some of the things you've done in terms of working with different IDEs. I think recently you had a big product announcement where you integrated in with Visual Studio to allow people to use that as their development environment. Can you tell us a little bit about that product, what you did, and maybe also a little bit about how you actually went about launching it?
Yeah, so we did run a survey a little while back for MPLAB, and we found out that the majority of our users, of our clients, if they're not using MPLAB X, the majority of them are using VS Code or a Virtual Studio by Microsoft. And we have seen, quite a few competitors going out and putting extensions for VS Code. So we went ahead and created our own. So what you can do now is if you are a VS Code user, you can use the extensions to import projects from MPLAB X. You can use MPLAB XC compilers in VS Code. You can also use any of our debuggers in VS Code. We've also have an extension for the data visualizer, which is a great product where you can, in real time, log your data on your project and see things like power consumption through as your code runs, that sort of stuff. So all of those things are in there now. We have plans. I think the next one we're going to put out is for MPLAB Code Configurator. So we want to get people moving into that system. We want to allow people to move into that system. It is probably the most popular sort of IDE code development tool out there right now that we've seen, at least that our clients are using. So we want to make sure that people have the flexibility to go ahead and use that. If for some reason you have not used VS Code and you're a strict MPLAB X user and you want to try it out, we have some training videos we're putting out on the web. There are some things you need to know if you're not familiar with VS Code, because it does work differently than MPLAB X, since MPLAB X is actually based off NetBeans. It's a completely different product. But we have training videos. We have a blog that went online. We have some information in our developer help that'll also get you started and get you moving in that direction, because we do see that as being sort of the direction of the future. So, yeah.
I love that. I love the way that you've gone out and you've actually asked the customers what they want and responded to that. I love the way that Microchip, really digs into what its customers want rather than just assuming that you know best.
Yes, like I said, we have a team of, we call them ESEs. We have a team of our field engineers that we meet with quite regularly. And we also meet with the business units, the heads of the business units, and they meet with clients quite often. So they usually know what their clients are looking for, and then they come back and feed that information to us, as well as we get the information from the field teams. We also work quite closely with we call them the corporate applications engineers. So when you have a issue with a product, could be silicon, could be an eval board, usually put in a ticket and you get a response back from one of our corporate applications engineers. We meet with them regularly too. So we see what those tickets are, we see what those problems are. And a lot of times they'll feed, if it's something they can't handle, they feed it directly into the development tools team. So if a client's having a problem with, say, one of the compiler optimizations, maybe it's not doing what they think it should do, they'll bring it into the compiler engineer. So it's someone who designs the compilers. We'll get back to the client, and I know that they all talk to them quite regularly, the clients. if they have problems. If there's any issues with licensing, we have people that take that over. And again, it sometimes goes right back into the people who are developing the product itself. So you get to speak to the experts when it's required.
This has been fascinating, Christine. We've covered an awful lot, from AI through to, integrations with VS Code, through to how you actually work out what your customers want for the next generation. I mean, is there one thing you'd like listeners to take away about Microchip's development systems?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say that, we are listening. We have a big organization inside of development tools, and we're always sort of scanning the market for what's the latest and greatest thing out there. We're integrating those things into our tools. I've been with Microchip now, back at Microchip for about 15 years, working in development tools. We were putting out, a new tool probably once every couple of years. I don't know if anyone's been, if you've been seeing what's been happening, but we've been putting out new debuggers regularly. Like in the last 5 years, we've put out the Picket 5, the ICD 5, the ICE 4. And in the background, we're working on other new things that are coming out. So we're always looking around and seeing what's coming up in the world of development and how we can better serve our clients. And we're always there for, if there's some problems that you're having, we have people that can help you.
Oh, thanks, Christine. That's awesome. I mean, if listeners want to learn more or maybe ask some questions about Microchip's development systems, where's the best place for them to go?
The best place to go would be on our website. And if you go to the Microchip Client Support and Services section of our website, you can submit a question there, or you can schedule a call with them as well. And they will route your question or comment to the appropriate person. I do get a lot of emails from them, and I talk to them quite regularly. So it may come to me or it may come to a person on our engineering team.
That sounds great. It sounds like an easy way to immediately find the right person in Microchip. Christine, it's been fascinating talking to you about development systems. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Microchip Is podcast. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform to keep learning about the many technologies, products, and people that make Microchip what it is today. Look out for our upcoming Microchip Is podcasts and our new Beyond the Microchip podcast series.